December 1942. Arctic Ocean. Night. The sea was on fire. From the cockpit of his Junkers 88, Oberleutnant Hans Becker watched an entire forest burn on the surface of the black water. Flames climbed higher than church steeples, licking at the polar sky, turning snow clouds orange and red. The smell of burning resin and oil forced its way through the cockpit vents. It smelled like a pine forest at Christmas, if that forest had been soaked in fuel and set alight. The radio in his headset crackled with excited voices. Convoy destroyed. Multiple ships burning. Repeat. Multiple ships burning. Below him, 3 silhouettes were swallowed by the Inferno. Decks collapsed inward. Masts twisted and fell in showers of sparks. Barrels rolled off tilting hulls and exploded when they hit the water, spraying burning liquid in wide arcs. The dark Arctic waves turned into a field of fire, a glowing, shifting carpet of orange. His rear gunner laughed, a sharp, high sound that did not match the horror below. "Look at that, Hans. That is it. That is the end of them." Becker did not answer. He squinted through the gun sight, scanning the burning wrecks. He was looking for lifeboats, for men in the water, for any sign of movement. He saw nothing but fire and smoke and black shapes breaking in half. "Confirm hits," the ground controller demanded over the radio. "We need confirmation. Report number of transports sunk." Becker clicked the transmitter. "This is Becker. I count at least 3 large transports destroyed. Possibly more. The sea is covered in burning fuel. I see no survivors. No escorts engaging. The convoy is finished." He heard cheering in the background on the other end of the line. Someone shouted something about a victory for the Emperor. Another voice yelled that this would teach the English to send ships to Russia. Becker watched one of the burning hulls roll onto its side. For a moment, in the flickering light, he saw something strange. The ship's deck looked wrong. No cranes, no vehicles. Just long, uniform shapes stacked in neat rows. Logs. Thousands of logs. He frowned. "That is odd," he muttered. "What?" the gunner asked. "Nothing," Becker said. "Probably just cargo." Below them, one of the ships exploded. A column of fire surged upward, and a blast wave rocked the Junkers. Becker tightened his grip on the controls, leveled the aircraft, and pulled away from the Inferno. "All bombers, return to base," the controller ordered. "The convoy is destroyed. You have done your duty." As Becker banked his plane south, the reflection of the burning sea still lit the instrument panel. Behind them, in the frozen darkness, 3 dead ships burned like giant, floating Christmas trees, their branches of stacked logs and barrels feeding a fire so bright it turned night into day. He pushed the unease aside. It did not matter what they had been carrying. What mattered was the report. Convoy destroyed. Mission accomplished. He never saw the real convoy, 30 miles to the north, moving through the darkness in perfect radio silence. The same night, earlier, HMS Scylla, flagship of the escort. Captain Robert Sherbrooke stood over the chart table, hands gripping the edge hard enough to make his knuckles white. The red line marking their route curled across the map like a vein. To the west, Scotland. To the east, Murmansk. Between them, a stretch of ocean that sailors now called a killing ground. A young signal officer finished reading the latest intelligence summary aloud. "Enemy air strength in northern Norway remains high. Estimated 40 to 50 Junkers, 88 bombers available. Multiple U-boat packs positioned along probable convoy routes." Sherbrooke exhaled slowly. "Losses on the last 3 convoys?" he asked. The officer hesitated, then answered. 1 in 3 ships, sir. For PQ-17. Worse. He did not need to finish. Everyone on the bridge knew the numbers. 24 ships out of 35 sunk. Men frozen to death in life jackets. Lifeboats crushed between ice and steel. On the chart, 15 small markers represented the merchant ships that would sail with them in less than 2 days. Each marker meant hundreds of men, thousands of tons of cargo, tanks, ammunition, aircraft, fuel. Each marker was a target. Sherbrooke looked at them and saw, not ships, but letters he might have to write. Dear Mrs. Thompson, dear Mrs. Allen, it is my sad duty to inform you. The door to the chart room opened. A liaison officer from the Soviet Navy entered, stamping snow from his boots. He was in his 30s, with a pale, tired face and sharp eyes. Captain Sherbrooke, he said in heavily accented English, Admiral Golovko has sent new instructions. Sherbrooke straightened. The Soviet had his full attention. What kind of instructions? The officer unfolded a coded message and slid it across the table. It concerns special ships that will join your convoy in the Barents Sea. They are under Soviet command. Their role is unusual. Sherbrooke read the message. As he reached the second paragraph, his jaw tightened. Old freighters, he said, loaded with timber and barrels of flammable materials, placed ahead of the convoy, positioned deliberately in the most likely path of enemy bombers. He looked up. You are turning them into bait. The Soviet officer did not flinch. We are turning them into a shield, he replied. When the Germans find them, they will believe they have found you. They will report your destruction. While they celebrate, you will still be alive. Sherbrooke felt a bitter taste in his mouth. These ships, he said slowly, they have crews. Of course, the Soviet answered. They must look like real transports. They must behave like real transports. Otherwise, the Germans will be suspicious. And what happens to these crews when the bombers attack? Sherbrooke asked. The Soviet officer paused for a heartbeat. They abandon ship before the fire starts, he said. That is the plan. The plan, Sherbrooke repeated. And if something goes wrong? If they do not get clear in time? The Soviet's expression hardened. Then they die, he said, like our men do every week in this harbor, like your men did in PQ-17. The difference is that this time, their deaths will mean something. Their deaths will drag the bombs away from your ships. For a moment, the only sound in the chart room was the faint vibration of the hull and the distant howl of the Arctic wind. Sherbrooke looked back down at the markers on the map. 15 ships, thousands of men, millions of lives depending on the cargo they carried. He had seen men die for nothing, torpedoed in the dark, bombed without warning, lost in storms, crosses on empty graves. He swallowed. How many of these bait ships? He asked. 3, the Soviet replied. All old, all considered expendable by Moscow. Expendable, Sherbrooke said quietly. And their captains? Do they know they have been labeled expendable? The Soviet met his gaze. They volunteered. Murmansk, 2 days earlier. Admiral Arseny Golovko stood on the edge of the frozen pier, his breath a white plume in the polar air. Before him, 3 freighters sat low in the water. They were ugly and tired, patched hulls, crooked masts, paint flaking off in sheets. To an enemy reconnaissance plane, they would look like perfect victims. Dock workers moved between them, dwarfed by the mountains of timber stacked on the decks. Pine logs piled in dense, orderly layers from one rail to the other. Between the stacks, men rolled barrels into position. Each barrel was marked with a crude, hand-painted label: tar, resin, kerosene. Captain Ivan Maslov, of the freighter Decabrist, climbed the gangplank towards him. His beard was stiff with frost. He stopped at attention, then smiled in a way that did not reach his eyes. "Admiral," Maslov said, "your Christmas trees are ready." Golovko glanced at the decks. "Christmas trees?" he asked. Maslov shrugged. "Look at them," he said. "Pine from hull to mast. If we were not in hell, I would say it is festive." The joke died quickly in the cold air. Golovko did not smile. "Your men understand the mission?" he asked. Maslov's face grew serious. "They know we will sail ahead of the convoy," he said. "They know we will be the first ones detected. They know that when the Germans come, they will come for us." Golovko watched a crane lower another barrel into a gap between logs. The dock workers lashed it down, hammered wedges into place, and moved on. "And they know what is in those barrels?" Golovko asked. Maslov nodded. "They have seen the tests," he said. "They know what will happen when the charges are triggered. They know the fire will be big." Big was the wrong word, Golovko thought. During the trial run in a remote bay, one ship loaded at half capacity had become a column of fire visible for 40 kilometers. The smoke had climbed so high that pilots reported it from 100 miles away. The water had boiled around the hull. The heat had scorched paint off a tug that had been too close. "What about evacuation drills?" Golovko asked. Maslov's voice hardened. "We can get all lifeboats into the water in under 3 minutes, he said. "We have cut away unnecessary fittings. We have oiled every block and pulley. We have practiced in full gear, in darkness, in simulated panic. My men can get from bunk to boat blindfolded." "And if they have less than 3 minutes?" Golovko asked. Maslov looked him straight in the eye. "Then you will have very realistic dead bodies for the Germans to see through their binoculars," he said. "Maybe that will sell the illusion better." There it was, the line that cut through all maps and plans and calculations. "You can still refuse," Golovko said quietly. "Moscow needs volunteers, not martyrs dragged to the dock." Maslov snorted. "Refuse," he said. "And do what? Sit in harbor while someone else burns? Watch another convoy destroyed because we were too afraid to load a few more logs? No, Admiral. If men must be bait, better that it is men who have already made peace with their ghosts." A gust of wind blew across the pier, carrying the smell of pine and fuel. It should have smelled like a forest. It smelled like a funeral pyre. "Library?" "Very well," Golovko said. "You sail in 48 hours. You will be 40 miles ahead of the main convoy. When German aircraft appear, you will maintain speed and course. You will look slow, overloaded, vulnerable, like fat sheep." "And when they start their run?" Maslov asked. "Then you will signal abandon ship," Golovko said. "You will launch lifeboats. You will get clear. On my order, we will trigger the incendiary charges remotely from escorting vessels. And then, Captain Maslov, you will die." Maslov blinked. "I thought the plan was to survive," he said. Golovko nodded. "It is," he said. "But when the Germans write their reports, when they radio their headquarters, they will say something else. They will say you died. They will say they saw you burn. They will say the convoy was destroyed. That lies your real mission." Maslov took a breath, slowly. His lips moved as if he was about to say something. Then he changed his mind. "You know what my men call these ships?" he asked instead. "What?" "The Christmas trees," he said, "because when they burn, the sky will light up, and somewhere, far away in the dark, real ships will slip past like children taking their presents and running before someone wakes up." Golovko did not comment. He watched as Maslov turned and walked back towards his ship. The old captain moved with stiff, stubborn steps, as if the weight of all those logs was already on his shoulders. On the far side of the harbor, a hospital train whistled as it pulled away, carrying men who had survived previous convoys. Men without fingers, without feet, with faces that would never again feel warm. Golovko looked from the train to the three freighters and felt something twist in his chest. On paper, it was simple. Sacrifice 3 old ships to save 15 new ones. Sacrifice a few hundred men to save a few thousand. In the language of war, in the language of staff reports and casualty tables, it was clean, rational, efficient. In reality, it meant he was about to send men he knew by name into the sights of the strongest air arm in the north and tell them to wait until the bombs were close enough to see the rivets on the wings. Back on HMS Scylla, Sherbrooke concluded his briefing. "We depart in 36 hours, he said to his officers. "We meet the Soviet special ships near Bear Island. They will take position ahead of us. They will draw the initial attack." Lieutenant Commander Harold Jenkins stared at the chart. "So we hide behind them," he said. "We use them," Sherbrooke corrected, but the word tasted just as dirty. "And if the Germans are not fooled?" Jenkins asked. Sherbrooke looked at him. "Then the Germans attack both them and us," he said. "And we will fight. You know what that looks like." Jenkins nodded slowly. "I have seen ships hit by bombs, sir," he said. "I have heard men screaming in the water. If this trick gives us even a few more hours without that, I will take it." Sherbrooke dismissed the officers one by one. When the room was empty, he remained at the chart table, staring at the tiny markers that represented not just ships, but choices. Somewhere, at that very moment, 3 old freighters in Murmansk were loading the last of their pine logs and barrels, turning themselves into floating funeral pyres. Somewhere else, German pilots were cleaning the glass on their bomb sites, confident that their next mission would be just like the last. In 5 days, the sky over the Barents Sea would fill with fire, smoke, and lies. And when the first bombs fell, when the first Christmas trees went up in flames, tens of thousands of feet above the burning water, someone would be absolutely certain that they had just wiped a convoy from the face of the earth. They would be wrong. Murmansk. Dockside barracks. 40 hours before departure. The stove in the corner hissed and rattled, failing to make the room feel warmer than the outside corridor. 20 men sat on rough wooden benches, shoulders touching, wool coats unbuttoned, just enough to let the steam from their breath escape. Wet gloves and socks hung above the stove on a wire, dripping melted frost onto the floor. Boatswain Sergei Mikhailov rubbed his hands together and stared at the condensation on the window. He was 30, with a face that looked older because of the cold and the war. A missing piece of his left ear peeked out from under his cap, a souvenir from shrapnel at Odessa. Outside, the silhouettes of the 3 loaded freighters loomed in the dark like crouching animals. Stacked pine made their decks look higher, thicker, heavier than normal. Even through the glass, Sergei could smell the resin. "Smells like a forest," said a voice behind him. "If forests could drown." Sergei did not turn. He recognized the voice. It was Anton, the youngest man in the room. 19, too thin, eyes too bright for this place. "You are supposed to be cleaning the lifeboats," Sergei said. "We cleaned them," Anton replied. "Twice. You could eat from the floorboards now." "Then go eat from them," Sergei muttered. Anton ignored him and came to stand by the window. For a moment, they looked the same age, just two silhouettes in the reflection. "Is it true?" Anton asked quietly. "About the fire? That they tested it in Kola Bay and the smoke reached the clouds?" Sergei's jaw tightened. "It is true," he said. "I was there." Anton's eyes widened. "And?" he pressed. Sergei's mind dragged him back to that day. The half-empty test ship anchored in a remote inlet. The ignition signal. The calm before the first barrel blew its top and turned the deck into an instant furnace. Men on the tug had to shield their faces with their arms from 100 meters away. Paint blistered and ran. The smell of burning resin made his stomach twist. "And it worked," Sergei said. The officers smiled. The pilots said they could see it from 50 kilometers. They drank to the success of the experiment. "And the crew?" Anton asked. "We had no crew on that ship," Sergei said. "Just mannequins. They burned too." Anton was silent for a moment. "Then this is good," he said. "If it fools the Germans, if it saves the convoy, it is good." Sergei finally turned to look at him. "How many convoys have you sailed on, Anton?" he asked. "None," Anton said. "This is my first." Sergei nodded once. "I have been on 4, he said. "I have seen men freeze so fast they stop screaming after a minute. I have seen ships break in half like bread. If this trick keeps even one real ship from going down, then yes, it is good." Anton studied his face. "But you still look like a man who is going to the gallows," he said. Sergei snorted. "Because I know what happens if something goes wrong," he said. "If a lifeboat rope jams, if a man slips on ice, if a barrel cooks off early. We will not have mannequins on deck this time." The barracks door slammed open. Captain Ivan Maslov stepped inside, bringing a blast of freezing air with him. The room snapped to attention almost instantly. Men scrambled to their feet, chairs scraping against the floor. "Library." Maslov scanned their faces. He looked like the ships outside, old, dented, but somehow still upright. "Library." "At ease," he said. "Sit." They sat again, the benches creaking under the weight of fatigue and fear. Maslov walked to the front of the room and stopped under a bare light bulb. His coat was unbuttoned, revealing a worn navy sweater. His cap was tucked under his arm. "You all know why you are here," he began. "You have been told the basic plan. But I am going to explain it again, not as the Admiral did, but as a man who will be on the same deck as you." He pointed towards the window, towards the dark hulks in the harbor. "Our 3 ships will sail ahead of the convoy," he said. "We will be the first thing German reconnaissance sees. We will make sure they see us." He held up 3 fingers. "There are 3 things you must understand," he said. "First, we are bait. We are not escort. We are not transport. We are not heroes in the usual sense. We are bait, like a worm on a hook. Our job is to be attacked." Some men shifted on the benches. One cursed under his breath. Maslov continued. "Second, we are not supposed to die," he said. "We are supposed to live long enough to make the Germans believe we died. That means we stay on those ships until the last possible moment, until the bombers are committed, until the sea around us is full of falling metal. Only then do we leave." He held up the 3rd finger. "Third, there is no shame in fear," he said. Anyone who tells you he is not afraid is a liar or a fool. But there is shame in selfishness. If one man panics and jumps early, if one lifeboat is launched before the others are ready, if one flare goes off at the wrong time, it could give the game away. And then the Germans do not just kill us. They kill the convoy behind us. They kill men we will never meet. He let that sink in. If you cannot accept that, he said quietly, if you cannot carry that weight, you still have time to leave. No one will shoot you. No one will send you to a camp. You will be reassigned to a different ship. I will tell the admiral you were not chosen. But you must decide now. The room was silent. The only sound was the stove and the distant thud of cargo being loaded outside. Anton's fingers twitched on his knees. Sergei watched him from the corner of his eye. No one stood up. Maslov waited 10 seconds, 20, 30. He nodded. Good, he said. Then we are done with questions of courage. From this moment on, we deal only with questions of skill and timing. He pulled a piece of chalk from his pocket and walked over to a blackboard. He drew a rough outline of a ship, then marked X's along the deck. These are the lifeboat positions, he said. You will be assigned to specific boats. You will learn every step from your bunk to your station. You will practice until you can do it in your sleep. Then you will practice in the dark while I shout in your ear and shake the ladder. A few men exhaled softly. A weak attempt at a laugh. Maslov turned to the far corner, where a small man with thick glasses sat hunched over a notebook. Engineer Petrov, he said, explain the charges. Petrov stood, clutching the notebook, as if it were a life preserver. Yes, Captain, he said, voice slightly too high. There are 32 primary incendiary charges installed below deck, connected to the barrels through metal piping. Each charge is wired to a receiver. The receivers are tuned to a specific frequency, which will be transmitted from the escort ship when we are clear. He swallowed. When the signal is sent, ignition will be nearly simultaneous, he continued. Within 10 seconds, the deck will be engulfed. Within 30 seconds, the temperature will be high enough to ignite any exposed wood. Within 1 minute, the fire will be total. How total? Someone asked. Petrov looked at Maslov. Maslov nodded. Tell them, he said. Petrov licked his lips. If you are still on deck when the charges go off, he said, you will not make it to the rail. You will burn. If you are in the water within 50 meters of the hull, you will likely suffer severe burns from falling burning material and hot fuel. You must get at least 75 meters away, as fast as possible. He looked directly at them now. This is not like an engine fire, he said. It will not start small and grow. It will start big and get worse. Maslov stepped in. Which is why we have rehearsed, he said, and why every man wakes up tomorrow and the next day and the next, with one thought in his head. 3 minutes. That is your world now. 3 minutes from the first alarm to the last lifeboat hitting the water. He dropped the chalk back into his pocket. Dismissed for now, he said. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow we practice again. And after that, we sail. The men rose slowly, like old men rather than the collection of 20s and 30s they were. Some headed for bunks, others hovered in small clusters, whispering. Sergei and Anton remained by the window. You are staying? Sergei asked. Anton nodded. If I leave, someone else takes my place, Anton said. Maybe someone with a family. I have none, so I stay. Sergei looked at him more carefully. You are 19, he said. That is a family, whether you know it or not. Anton shrugged. If I die and the convoy lives, I have done more than most people who live to be old, he said. My father died in a camp. He did not get that choice. Sergei did not argue. He had his own ghosts. Harbor, next morning. Snow fell in light, dry flakes that turned the world into a grayscale photograph. Crews moved along the piers in organized lines, boarding their assigned ships. Loudspeakers barked orders. A tugboat horn bellowed. On the deck of the Decabrist, lifeboats swung slightly on their davits as men climbed into them and out again, rehearsing their places. Maslov stood by the rail, stopwatch in hand. "Go!" he shouted. The alarm bell clanged. Men burst from hatches and doorways, boots pounding on planks, hands grabbing railings, shoulders brushing in narrow passages. Sergei counted his steps without thinking. 12 from the bunk room to the ladder. 8 up. 6 to the starboard boat. Anton stumbled on the last rung, his hand sliding on a patch of ice. Sergei grabbed the back of his coat and yanked him upright. "Do that with bombs falling and you are dead," Sergei snapped. Anton nodded, cheeks red from more than just cold. They piled into the lifeboat, took their assigned seats, gripped the ropes. "Time!" Maslov shouted. Petrov, standing beside him with a clipboard, called out the number. 2 minutes, 21 seconds, Captain. "Again," Maslov said. "Until we are under 2 minutes." They repeated the drill until legs shook from climbing and hands went numb from gripping frozen metal. By midday, Petrov's voice was hoarse from calling times. Between drills, men checked the wiring to the receivers, the seals on the barrels, the lashings on the logs. Petrov crawled through cramped spaces below deck, tracing cables with his fingers, muttering to himself. At one point, Sergei climbed up to the bow to catch his breath. From there, he could see out of the harbor, past the ice crust around the piers, to the gray line where the sea met the horizon. Somewhere beyond that line, enemy aircraft sat on runways in Norway. Somewhere beyond that line, a British convoy was forming. He imagined them. British sailors cursing the cold, loading crates marked with English words he did not know. Somewhere, an English captain was probably staring at a similar map, worrying about German bombers, not knowing that in Murmansk, strangers were turning themselves into torches for him. He spat over the side. "If we burn," he murmured, "you had better make it through." That night, Admiral Golovko gathered his senior officers in the operations room. On the wall, a large map showed the Arctic with lines and pins marking routes, known U-boat positions, and estimated Luftwaffe patrol zones. He tapped a pin near Bear Island. "The British convoy will reach this point in approximately 3 days," he said. "Our Christmas trees will be here, ahead of them. The Germans will be watching this area. Their reconnaissance will spot the first group they see. We will make sure that is not the real convoy." An intelligence officer stepped forward, placing a stack of photographs on the table. "Latest overflight images," he said. "German airfields at Banak and Bardufoss. We count at least 40 operational bombers. The pattern of their recent activity suggests they are training for massed attacks at low altitude." Golovko studied the photos. Rows of dark aircraft on white snow. Men standing next to them looked like black pins. "They are confident," he said. "They think they know how this game is played." He moved one of the pins slightly. "Then we change the rules," he said. "We give them something to destroy that is not what they think." An aide handed him a message form. "From the British Admiralty," the aide said. "They are concerned about casualties among the crews of the special ships. Golovko read the carefully worded phrases, expressions of appreciation, questions about risk, oblique references to political consequences, if it became known that Soviet crews had been used as deliberate bait. He folded the paper and put it aside without comment. "Any questions?" he asked his officers. They had plenty. About timing, about frequencies, about weather fronts, about fuel reserves for the escorts. None about the morality of setting 3 ships on fire while men watched from lifeboats. That part they had all quietly decided already. The calculus of war did not leave much room for purity. Later, alone in his office, Golovko opened a drawer and took out a small stack of letters. They were already addressed. Each envelope had a name and a home village on it. Maslov, Petrov, Mikhailov, others. He placed them on the desk in a row. They were not death notices. Not yet. They were letters of commendation, drafted in advance, praising bravery and sacrifice. They would be sent, whether the men lived or died, but Golovko knew that if the operation went badly, someone would add a black ribbon to each envelope. He tapped the one with Maslov's name. "You wanted to volunteer," he said softly into the empty room. "This is what volunteering looks like." Out at the pier, under a sky streaked with faint northern lights, the 3 phantom ships lay quiet and heavy. Their decks were forests of pine and steel barrels. Their holds were packed with dry wood and fuel. Their crews lay in their bunks, trying to sleep with the image of test fires still blazing behind their closed eyes. In 2 nights, they would slip out of Murmansk harbor with almost no lights, just 3 dark shapes moving into a darker sea. Somewhere far to the west, British crewmen would be doing the same, unaware that ahead of them sailed men whose job was not to deliver cargo, but to die convincingly, if needed. For now, the only sound was the occasional creak of mooring lines and the distant clank of a lonely hammer. The stage was built, the Christmas trees were dressed, the matches were ready. All that was missing was the hand that would strike them. Barents Sea. Day 3. 1400 hours. The Junkers 88 sliced through low clouds at 2,000 feet. Oberleutnant Hans Becker gripped the control column, eyes scanning the gray expanse below. Visibility was poor. Snow squalls reduced the horizon to 5 miles. Perfect hunting weather. His radio man broke the silence. "Contact. Bearing 090. Range 20 kilometers. 3 ships, slow-moving. Merchant type." Becker's pulse quickened. He banked left, climbing slightly to clear the clouds. The formation appeared. 3 freighters in loose column, black smoke trailing from their stacks. They looked overloaded, decks piled high with what appeared to be deck cargo. Vulnerable. Alone. "Convoy sighted," Becker transmitted. 3 transports. No escorts visible. Request strike authorization. The reply came fast. "Authorization granted. All squadrons converging. Primary target confirmed. Destroy them." Becker smiled grimly. Below, the lead ship plodded forward at 9 knots. Exactly the speed of tired, overloaded merchants. Exactly what intelligence predicted. He pushed the throttles forward. The Junkers surged. 40 miles north. Convoy JW-51B. Captain Robert Sherbrooke stood on HMS Scylla's bridge wing, binoculars pressed to his eyes. The merchant ships steamed in tight formation, destroyers weaving protective screens. Radio silence held. No radar emissions. Engines muffled. A signalman tapped his shoulder. "Soviet liaison reports contact, sir. Their special ships have been sighted by enemy reconnaissance. Bearing south-southeast. Estimated time to attack. 20 minutes. Sherbrooke lowered the binoculars. Very well. Maintain course and speed. Sound quiet battle stations. The bridge crew moved with practiced silence. Guns trained seaward. Depth charges armed. Lookouts doubled. No one spoke above a whisper. Sherbrooke glanced at the Soviet officer beside him. "Your men are in position?" The Soviet nodded. "They will hold until the last moment. Then they abandon. Then we ignite." Sherbrooke felt the deck vibrate under his feet. Somewhere south, 3 ships were sailing into a trap of their own making. He wondered if the captains regretted volunteering now. Decabrist, lead phantom ship, bridge. Captain Ivan Maslov gripped the rail, wind tearing at his coat. The sea rolled in heavy swells. Ice fragments clinked against the hull. Through the bridge windows, he watched the horizon. Boatswain Sergei Mikhailov stood beside him, stopwatch in hand. "First sweep confirmed at 13:58, Sergei said. "They are circling. 4 aircraft so far. Low passes." Maslov nodded. "Good. Let them see us. Let them count the crates on deck. Let them think we are fools." Anton appeared at the door, face pale. "Captain, radio traffic increasing. Multiple squadrons inbound. Estimated 40 aircraft." Maslov turned. "Sound the warning. Prepare to abandon. But hold position." The alarm bell rang twice. Sharp, urgent, not the full evacuation yet. Men below decks paused, listened, then returned to duties. Maslov picked up the engine order telegraph. "Full ahead both," he ordered. "Make smoke. Look desperate." Black smoke belched from the stack. Speed crept up to 12 knots. The other 2 phantoms mirrored the maneuver. To any observer from above, 3 panicked merchants were scattering. Becker's squadron broke through the clouds. 12 Junkers, 88s in loose formation. Below, the freighters scattered like rabbits. Perfect. "Attack plan Alpha," Becker transmitted. "Lead ship first. Dive individually. Bombs away at 500 feet." He rolled into his dive, nose dropping toward the lead target. Wind howled through the airframe. The freighter grew in his windscreen. Rust streaks, sagging deck cargo, frantic figures on deck. 1,000 feet. 800. Crosshairs settled on the bridge. He squeezed the bomb release. 2 500-pounders tumbled free. Becker pulled up hard, clearing the smoke. Impacts. Direct hits amidships. Secondary explosions ripped through the hull. Flames erupted instantly, fed by something volatile below decks. "Direct hit!" Becker shouted into the radio. "Lead ship breaking up!" More bombers followed. The second freighter took a stick of bombs across the beam. Her deck vanished in orange fireball. The third ship zigzagged desperately, but bombs bracketed her, punching holes through the piled cargo. Decabrist bridge. Chaos. The deck shuddered under multiple near misses. Glass shattered. A stanchion buckled. Maslov tasted blood from a cut lip. "Now!" he roared. Full alarm. Continuous clang. Men erupted from every hatch compartment ladder. No orders needed. 3 months of drills took over. Sergei grabbed Anton's arm. "Starboard boat! Move!" They ran. Boots slipped on iced planking. Shrapnel whined overhead. A bomb exploded 50 meters off the bow, sending green water across the forecastle. Lifeboat davits groaned as crews hauled on falls. Men piled in, 20 per boat. No shoving, no panic. Faces set like stone. Maslov remained on the bridge, counting seconds. 2 minutes, Sergei yelled from the rail. Another bomb struck aft. The deck tilted. Flames licked up from the engine room companionway. "Captain!" Sergei bellowed. Maslov turned from the Polaris. He had seen enough. The Germans were committed, diving repeatedly, reporting kills. "Abandon ship!" Maslov shouted. "All boats away!" He was last man down the ladder. The final lifeboat hit the water with a slap. Oars bit sea. They pulled away hard, 70 meters, 90. Petrov clutched a radio handset, screaming into it. Decabris clear. Second ship clear. Third ship clear. Ignite. 40 miles north. Escort destroyer. A Soviet signals officer keyed the transmitter. Single tone burst. Precise frequency. South. Ignition. Decabris. Silence for 3 heartbeats. Then hell. 32 charges detonated as one. Barrels ruptured. Kerosene flashed. Resin ignited. Pine logs exploded into flame. The deck vanished in a solid wall of fire 30 meters high. Superheated air boiled the paint off the hull. Steel glowed red. A mushroom of black smoke climbed kilometer into the sky. Sergei shielded his eyes. Heat reached them across open water, singeing eyebrows. Lifeboat paint blistered. Above, Becker's squadron circled the Inferno. Flames reflected off wings, turning bombers orange. Confirm destruction, ground control demanded. Lead ship completely engulfed, Becker reported. Secondary explosions continuous. No survivors visible. Second and third ships also burning fiercely. Laughter crackled over the radio. Cheering. Orders for follow-up torpedo strikes. Becker banked for one last pass. Through smoke gaps, he glimpsed the horror. Entire decks consumed. Masts silhouetted against Inferno. Sea slick with burning fuel. No lifeboats, no swimmers, just fire. Convoy annihilated, he transmitted. Returning to base. As the bombers formed up and turned south, the 3 Phantom crews rode through floating embers. Scorched wood rained around them. Paint flakes glowed on the water. Maslov sat in the bow of his boat, soaked, burned, alive. He looked back at his ship, a perfect pyre, visible for 50 miles. Sergei rowed beside Anton, whose hands bled raw on the oars. "Did we do it?" Anton gasped. Maslov scanned the sky. Empty, bombers gone. "We did it," he said. 40 miles north, Sherbrooke lowered his binoculars. Faint smoke plume on southern horizon. No aircraft vectoring their way. "Convoy maintains course," he ordered quietly. Radio silence continues. The real convoy steamed on, invisible in gathering dusk. 15 merchants, destroyers screening, 30,000 tons of war material intact. The Luftwaffe celebrated a massacre that never happened. Decabris lifeboats. 1 hour later, escort destroyer approached through swells. Grappling hooks secured boats. Men climbed nets, collapsing on decks. Maslov reported to the captain. "All accounted for," he said. "Minor burns. Exhaustion. No fatalities." The destroyer captain gripped his shoulder. "Your ship's burned like the devil himself," he said. "German radio traffic confirms. They think the convoy is gone." Maslov nodded, watching his freighter's glow fade against the clouds. "Good," he said. "Now get us fuel and dry clothes. We have 2 more ships to light if needed." He did not mention the cost. The man who had not made it off the third ship. The engineer trapped below when a hatch jammed. The boy who panicked and jumped too soon, vanishing in burning oil. Those were the real Christmas trees. Brief flames in the Arctic night. Above Norway, Luftwaffe base, Bardufoss. Becker taxied to a stop. Ground crew swarmed. He climbed down, legs unsteady. His squadron commander met him, grinning. "Outstanding work, Becker. 3 transports confirmed destroyed. Headquarters is ecstatic. Goring himself sends congratulations." Becker forced a smile. "Easy targets," he said. In the mess, pilots clustered around radios. Reports poured in, convoy scattered, sunk, finished. Beers opened, toasts raised. Becker sipped his, staring at foam. Something nagged. Those decks. The uniform cargo. The way the fires started too perfectly. He pushed it down. Victory was victory. Far to the southeast, through snow and darkness, 15 British ships approached Murmansk. Unscathed, unseen, unstoppable. Bardufoss Airfield, Norway. 1800 hours. Same day. Oberleutnant Hans Becker sat in the debriefing room, nursing a lukewarm coffee. The walls vibrated from engines spooling up outside. Maps covered the table, marked with red crosses where the convoy had burned. His squadron mates slapped backs and lit cigarettes, still buzzing from the kill reports. Major Kurt Hoffman burst through the door, face flushed. He slammed a folder down. "Excellent work today," he said. "Headquarters confirms your sighting as the main convoy element. 3 heavy transports sunk. Estimated tonnage, 15,000. The English supply line to Russia bleeds." Cheers erupted. Hoffman raised a hand. "But," he said, "we have a problem. U-boat reports from the area. No wreckage sighted. No oil slicks. No debris fields. Wolf Pack Commander requests confirmation before repositioning." Becker set his cup down. The nagging doubt from the dive returned. "The fires were total, sir," he said. "No survivors possible. The sea was burning for kilometers." Hoffman opened the folder. Aerial reconnaissance photos from 2 hours ago. Smudges of smoke on the horizon. No ships, no boats. Just empty water. "And this," Hoffman said, passing a signal intercept printout. "Soviet radio traffic from Murmansk. Coded, but patterns match normal harbor operations. No emergency chatter, no casualty reports." A pilot in the back shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe they sank completely," he offered. Hoffman snorted. "3 freighters do not vanish without trace," he said. "Especially not ones overloaded with deck cargo. Something is wrong." Becker leaned forward. "The cargo," he said slowly. "It looked uniform. Like logs, not crates. And the fires started too fast. Like they were waiting to ignite." The room went quiet. Hoffman stared at him. "Explain." Becker described the dive, the instant secondary explosions. Flames that spread deck to deck in seconds, not minutes. No panicked crew visible after the first hits. Hoffman grabbed the phone. "Get me naval intelligence. Priority 1. Murmansk Harbor. 2200 hours. Convoy JW-51B steamed past the breakwaters under blackout. 15 merchant ships intact. Destroyers flanking. Tugboats nudged them to piers stacked with cranes and nets. Captain Robert Sherbrooke watched from HMS Scylla's bridge as lines were passed. The first tanker nosed into berth. Cheers rose from the docks, faint against the wind. Soviet Admiral Arseny Golovko waited at the pierhead, greatcoat flapping. Spotlights stayed off. Sailors in white camouflage unloaded the first crates by hand lantern. Sherbrooke went ashore. Golovko gripped his hand hard. "Your men made it," Golovko said. "All cargo safe, tanks, fighters, fuel, 30,000 tons the Germans will never touch." Sherbrooke nodded, scanning the dark shapes of warehouses. "And our special ships?" Golovko's face tightened. 2 crews complete. Decabrist lost 5. Hatch jammed during evacuation. 1 boy panicked, jumped into the oil slick. Sherbrooke felt the words like a punch. "Names?" Golovko handed him a list. 5 Soviet names, ages, home villages. "Captain Maslov sends regards," Golovko added. "He says the Christmas trees burned bright." Sherbrooke folded the paper. "Tell him the British Navy owes him a debt, and a bottle of scotch when this is over." Berlin. Wolf's Lair. 0200 hours. Next day. Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring paced the operations map room. Pins marked convoy routes, red for sunk, blue for confirmed kills. Aides stood rigid. Admiral Karl D. Nitz entered, face like granite. Your Luftwaffe reports a great victory yesterday, Diednitz said. 3 transports destroyed. Convoy crippled. Goring smirked. Precisely. My boys did what your submarines could not. Diednitz dropped a folder on the table. Then explain this, he said. British Admiralty signals intercepted. Convoy JW-51B docks in Murmansk intact. 15 merchants. Full cargo complement. Goring stopped pacing. Impossible. Very possible, Diednitz replied. U-boats find no wreckage. Reconnaissance finds no debris. Soviet agents confirm arrivals. Your pilots burned decoys. Goring snatched the folder. Photos, signals, timelines. Decoys, he roared. My squadrons destroyed an entire convoy. Apparently not, Diednitz said. They destroyed wood piles and fuel barrels, while the real ships slipped past. An aide hurried in with a fresh intercept. Führer demands explanation, the aide said. Immediate. Goring's face purpled. Get me Bardufoss, he snarled. I want every pilot interrogated, every photo re-examined. If this is true, he trailed off. Outside, guards snapped to attention as Hitler's staff car approached. Bannock Airfield. 400 hours. Hans Becker woke to pounding on his door. 2 Gestapo officers in black coats waited. Oberleutnant Becker, one said, you will come with us. Becker dressed in silence. They drove to a windowless hut. Hoffman waited inside, sweating. They think sabotage, Hoffman whispered, or incompetence. Interrogation lasted 4 hours. Questions about the dive, the fires, cargo observations. Becker repeated everything. The uniform logs, instant ignition, no crew after hits. Describe the explosions, the Gestapo officer demanded. Like thermite, Becker said. But bigger. Barrels cooked off in sequence. Fireballs everywhere. The officer made notes. And you saw no lifeboats? None after the first pass, Becker said. Just fire. They released him at dawn. Hoffman pulled him aside. Berlin is furious, Hoffman said. Goring takes full blame. Claims pilot error. Becker stared at the runway. Junkers lined up, fueled for next patrol. What now? He asked. Hoffman shrugged. We fly again, but they know. The Russians have a trick. Next convoy, we verify before we celebrate. Murmansk, destroyer deck. 0600 hours. Captain Ivan Maslov sat wrapped in blankets, hands bandaged. Sergei Mikhailov brought him tea. Anton hovered nearby, eyes hollow. You did good, Maslov said to Sergei. Got your boat clear. Sergei nodded. Engineer Petrov saved 3 from the 3rd ship, he said. Jumped back aboard, kicked the jammed hatch free. Got burned bad. Maslov sipped the tea. It tasted of rust. Admiral wants volunteers for next run, he said. Same ships, rebuilt. 2 more convoys expected this winter. Anton blinked. Again? Maslov looked at him. Once fools the Germans, he said. Twice makes them suspicious. 3 times? They adapt. But 2 saves another 15 ships. Sergei rubbed his frost-bitten ear. And if they shoot the lifeboats next time? Maslov met his gaze. Then we row faster. A klaxon sounded. All hands to briefing. Golovko's operations room. 0800 hours. Captains gathered around the map. New pins marked phantom ship positions. Real convoy route in green. Success confirmed, Golovko said. German reports claim convoy destroyed. They repositioned U-boats south. Air patrols shifted west. He tapped Murmansk. 15 ships unloaded. Cargo already en route to front. Stalingrad holds because of this. Maslov raised a hand. And losses, Admiral? Golovko paused. 5 dead. 20 burned. 1 ship, total loss. Quiet nods. Next convoy in 14 days, Golovko continued. We repeat. But Germans will be watching closer. Petrov spoke up, bandages on his hands. They learn from fires, Admiral. Next time, maybe low strafing first. Lifeboats become targets. Golovko nodded. Then we adapt. Smoke pots, more escorts, whatever it takes. He looked at Maslov. Captain? Maslov stood straight. Decabrist ready in 48 hours, he said. Load her up. We burn again. Outside, cranes groaned. Pine logs stacked again. Barrels rolled aboard. The cycle reset. Berlin, same time. Hitler slammed the table. Decoys, he shouted. The Bolsheviks mock us with wood. Göring stood mute. Find them, Hitler ordered Dienitz. Sink everything that moves. Verify every kill. No more celebrations until I see bodies. Dienitz saluted. Yes, mein Emperor. Back in Norway, Becker climbed into his Junkers cockpit. Engine coughed to life. Runway rushed past. He banked north, eyes scanning every shadow on the water. No assumptions. No easy kills. Below, the sea lay flat and empty. But somewhere, ships moved. Real ones, and phantoms waiting to burn. The deception held. For now. But cracks formed. Murmansk Harbor, 14 days later. Second phantom operation. Captain Ivan Maslov stood on the rebuilt Decabrist's bridge, wind clawing at his scarred hands. Fresh pine logs towered around him, lashed tighter than before. Extra barrels nestled in hidden recesses. Smoke pots lined the rails. Below, Sergei Mikhailov checked the new lifeboat davits. Thicker ropes. Heated oars. Thermal suits for every man. Lessons from the first burn etched into every fitting. Germans changed tactics, Maslov said to no one. Low strafing first. Verify before bombing. Sergei looked up from the falls. Then we launch earlier, he said. 2 minutes from first pass. Maslov nodded. Petrov appeared from below, face half hidden by fresh bandages. Charges doubled, he said. Remote triggers reinforced. If they strafe, we still ignite. The convoy behind them steamed, silent. 15 more ships, same cargo, same stakes. Bardufoss airfield, same time. Oberleutnant Hans Becker taxied his Junkers into position. No victory cheers this time. Orders were clear. Low altitude. Machine guns first. Lifeboats are targets. No assumptions. Major Hoffman briefed the squadron. Last time was decoys, he said. This time confirm kills. Strafe decks. Watch for wood. Report everything. Becker gripped the stick. The nagging doubt had hardened into certainty. Russians played a deep game, but arithmetic favored the hunters. Barents Sea. Contact. Becker's formation spotted the phantoms at 20 kilometers. 3 freighters again. Same overloaded silhouette. But escorts lurked closer this time. Shadows on radar. Low pass, Becker transmitted. Guns only. They dove. Cannons chattered. Tracers stitched the decks. Figures scattered. Lifeboats swung out instantly. Becker pulled up, scanning. Lifeboats launching early, he reported. Suspicious. Second pass. More fire. 1 boat splintered. Screams carried on the wind. Decabrist. Sergei rode through bullets. Anton slumped in the stern, red blooming on his coat. Hold him, Sergei yelled. Maslov bandaged as they pulled. Too late. Anton stared at the sky, mouth open. Lost one. Maslov radioed the escort. Keep rowing. Ignition signal flashed. Fires erupted. Bigger than before. Flames licked 200 meters high. Black smoke blotted the sun. Becker circled the Inferno. Same trick, he transmitted. Decoys confirmed. Lifeboats escaping. Real convoy elsewhere. He banked away. No bombs wasted. Report filed. Game recognized. Murmansk. Post-operation. Golovko met Maslov at the pier. Anton's body draped in white sheet nearby. Convoy safe, Golovko said. Your second burn bought them 12 hours. Maslov spat blood-tinged phlegm. They learn fast, he said. Next time, no lifeboats left. Golovko gripped his shoulder. "No next time for you," he said. "London requests your presence. Heroes welcome. Victoria Cross recommendation." Maslov laughed, harsh. "Tell them to send scotch and keep burning trees." Berlin. F. Rebunker. Intercepted reports. Hitler crushed the signal flimsy. "Twice fooled," he roared. "Wood ships, barrels, while tanks roll to Stalingrad." Dietenitz bowed head. "We adapt, mein Führer. Photo verification, radar sweeps. No more phantoms fool us." Goring silent in corner. Luftwaffe prestige cracked. Post-war, 1955. London. Naval Review. Captain Robert Sherbrooke, now Rear Admiral, raised glass with Ivan Maslov at embassy reception. Both gray, both limping. "Your trees saved my convoy," Sherbrooke said. "Twice." Maslov clinked glasses. "And your silence let us burn them," he replied. 3 operations total, JW-51B, JW-52, JW-53. Germans chased ghosts all winter. Sherbrooke leaned in. "Ever tell your side?" Maslov shook head. "Classified until 2000, he said. By then, who cares?" Bardufoss. Same year. Pilot reunion. Hans Becker nursed beer with old squadron mates. Snow still fell. "Those fires," he said. "Christmas trees. Russians stacked pines and tar. We bombed forests." Laughter bitter. "Reported 30,000 tons sunk," another pilot said. "Actual 0, while real convoys docked." Becker stared into foam. "War of mirrors," he said. "We saw what they wanted." Murmansk, 1962. Declassification. Soviet archives opened. Decembrist logs released. Photos emerged, charred hulls, lifeboat scars, pine ash. Western analysts pored over them. "Genius," one wrote. "Psychological deception. Cost, 17 lives. Saved, 5,000 tons cargo per run. 4 operations total before Germans adapted." Golovko's memoir, published posthumously. "We turned scrap into shields. Old ships. Expendable wood. Brave fools. Germans needed to believe victory. We gave them illusion. Real war continued behind smoke." Stalingrad, January 1943. Same winter. T-34 tanks rolled forward, fueled by phantom cargo. Fighters scrambled from Murmansk fields, armed by ghost supplies. Red Army pushed. No mention of Christmas trees in victory speeches. Final accounting. Convoy. JW-51B. 1515 arrived. Phantom losses. Decembrist. Total. 2 others rebuilt thrice. Crew casualties. 17 dead, 42 wounded. German reaction. Tactics shifted to saturation bombing. Radar verification. Deception worked 4 times before countered. London, 1975. Sherbrooke obituary. Arctic convoy savior. Never mentioned his Soviet debt. Murmansk, Maslov grave. Inscription. Burned bright so others sailed dark. Becker, retired in Bavaria. 1980s interview. "Did you know?" "No," he said. "Saw fire, reported victory, believed it. War is what you see through bomb sight." Final image. Barents, Sea. Modern tanker passes old wreck site. Pine fragments still wash ashore some winters. Locals call them Christmas driftwood. Deception won battles. Smoke hid truth. Mirrors reflected lies. In Arctic, where days barely break and nights swallow ships, ghosts still burn. The convoys sailed on,